Veronica, I'd like to ask you about constitutional recognition before we end the night. We're very close to seeing a referendum come about, but I gather that the community felt that there was more to be done before we jumped into the way it was framed. I'd like to ask you specifically, what are the objectives that you feel really need to be in the legislation before it goes through, and how confident are you that we can bring awareness such that the referendum does get through?
Constitutional reform has certainly been something that I've been passionate about probably for 15 years. And of course, in conjunction with constitutional reform, you always have the debate as to whether constitutional reform is going to be substantive enough in relation to any amendments to Australia's constitution in regards to realistic gains. When you're talking about, because a lot of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people believe that there needs to be more discussion in regards to a treaty and the issues around sovereignty, and which I believe is going to be one of the biggest obstacles. Forget about the broader non-Aboriginal Australians. I think their issues that are real, that could certainly impede any successful referenda from happening in the future, because Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people believe that there is still unfinished business in regards to a treaty, and the issues around sovereignty. But having said that, I believe that constitutional reform, I always thought that maybe starting with each of the states was very important, was a stepping stone to maybe achieving constitutional recognition within the Australian Constitution, and it's certainly something that I thrived to achieve within New South Wales, was constitutional. Symbolic as it may be, it was certainly a major step, taken by the New South Wales government in recognising the first Australians within New South Wales and the New South Wales Constitution. There are certain provisions and sections within the Australian Constitution that exist now that are racist and need to be removed from the Australian Constitution, and that is what the expert panel has recommended that take place with a future referendum. But personally, I don't believe that goes far enough. I believe there needs, for any constitutional reform, it needs to be a lot more substantive in regards to recognition. One of the things that I've advocated quite strongly on, and also spoke at Wollongong University at the 2020 summit with my husband Barry, was to have an Aboriginal Senate, and that should be something that may be considered within the Constitution. And that's not just, it's not like ATSIC, something that can be just stroke of a pen, dissolved. I'm talking about an Aboriginal Senate where all Australians vote on who should be the Aboriginal representatives within Parliament. People who speak on behalf, of and advocate on behalf of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, but also have that very close connection within Parliament itself, especially when legislation is being dealt with, and it needs to go to the upper house. But also in regards to accountability as far as government spending is concerned in regards to services to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. The Senate doesn't determine the quantum of funds that is being spent, but they can certainly hold government, and certainly bureaucracy, accountable in relation to the expenditure of those funds. So I certainly believe that that's something, that maybe should be considered, but as to whether that's something realistically that will happen, I don't know. And I don't believe just amending the preamble to the Australian Constitution to recognise Aboriginal people, that isn't something that I believe is going to go far enough to satisfy, the recognition of Aboriginal people. I think the High Court have already, as we're all aware, the High Court in the decision as far as dispelling the myth of terra nullius within this country as far as the Mabo decision is concerned. So, and they didn't go far enough in regards to the issues of sovereignty, because if they did, that would have undermined their own very existence in regards to taking that one step as far as, acknowledging or recognising the sovereignty of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people within Australia. But I believe that I think there's a lot more education and a lot more discussion that needs to take place within the broader community on the issue of constitutional reform, and I don't believe that process should be rushed for political expedience. The 1967 referendum took a long, long time to achieve, and I believe we need to take the leap out of that in regards to that process if we're going to achieve something that is going to be more tangible and more sincere in recognising First Australians, if we're going to go down that path.